and turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Tiffany. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Timothy Dickey. I actually went to high school in Sumter, and I still have family in a number of points in the state, but I'm coming to you today from Columbus, Ohio, where I work and teach. I am also a former Alzheimer's caregiver for almost 8 years until October 2018.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Beth Riedner. I consider that my most important qualification to speak on the topic of dementia is that I was honored to be my husband Steve's caregiver through a 10-year journey with a rare young onset dementia called primary progressive aphasia. It's through what we experienced together that I learned how much people living with dementia want to retain their identity, dignity, and independence, despite the inevitable progress of their disease. Steve was my best teacher about how it is still possible to live well despite having a dementia diagnosis. I retired from my position as University Librarian for Roosevelt University in Chicago in 2008 and began offering a book and reading program as a volunteer at a memory care facility. That's how the Tales and Travel program started. I'll tell you more about this program later. I've also been involved in the leadership team for the American Library Association's interest group for Alzheimer's and related dementias, IGARD, for 7 years, and I currently hold the position of chair. This interest group has recently been renamed to Library Services for Dementia Alzheimer's, or LSDA, as part of a recent reorganization at ALA. LSDA is now part of the Office of Diversity, Literacy, and Outreach Services, or ODLOS. Timothy is too modest to say this, but he is actually the author of a terrific new book entitled Library Dementia Services. It's the only comprehensive guide available to help libraries meet the needs of this population. His book is packed full of resources and scholarly references to almost every aspect of this topic that you can imagine. I would highly recommend its purchase for anyone seriously interested in providing services to people living with dementia. It will save you a lot of time. I'll turn things back to Timothy now, and I'm going to put my headset on if you can't hear me.
Yeah, you're a little muffled. Maybe the headset will help. Thanks.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And thank you all again for coming and for caring about this community. Since you chose to aware that dementia is a global epidemic, there are more than 50 million older adults living with Alzheimer's and related dementias worldwide today. New cases are diagnosed every 3 seconds, and the number is projected to reach 82 million by 2030. The number of people with Alzheimer's dementia in the United States alone, 5.8 million, may triple by the year 2050. And cognitive impairment also deeply impacts tens of millions of unpaid caregivers for those with dementia. You should also know that the umbrella term dementia encompasses a wide spectrum of symptoms, including many different types of dementia. And it occurs in stages from mild cognitive impairment up to mild, moderate, and severe dementia. It's also highly, highly individual in its symptoms in any given person. There's no universal playbook to chart its development. In South Carolina, you actually have, I'm sorry to say, the highest rate of Alzheimer's deaths in the country. And the overall caseload in South Carolina is expected to rise more than 34% in the next few years as the population continues to age. The statewide caseload for persons with Alzheimer's disease is actually quite a bit higher than your current number of coronavirus cases, just to put it in perspective. In addition, a major report on the living arrangements of people with dementia indicates that 81% are still living in the community, which means that people living with dementia are walking through the doors of your library probably every day. And there are 3 on average, unpaid caregivers, usually family members, for each person living with dementia. That makes over 300,000 unpaid caregivers who also might be coming into your library looking for information or for meaningful activities to keep their loved ones engaged. Medical science has been able to determine a number of genetic and lifestyle factors associated with dementia, in addition to the main criteria, which is increasing age. However, despite millions of dollars published, put into Alzheimer's and dementia research, we have no effective treatment. There are 4 common prescriptions that can alleviate some symptoms but do not reverse or cure Alzheimer's dementia. But as the 2018 World Alzheimer Report says, we may not yet be able to cure dementia, but we may be able to stop some people getting it in the first place. And at the very least, it looks as though we can delay its onset. This is great news. And there are 3 very pertinent areas of non-pharmacological interventions that can have positive effects for brain health. Healthy lifestyle choices include better diet, regular cardiovascular exercise, good sleep hygiene, and anything that is good for the heart and the emotional health is also good for the brain. Mental stimulation fosters what is known as neuroplasticity, or brain growth, actually throughout our lives, including any kind of active participation in brain training and puzzles, creative engagement, learning new languages, musical instruments, really any new skills. Neuroplasticity does not seem to slow down nearly as much for adults who have been making demands on their brains to think differently and who continue to do so. Lifelong learning is the key here, and that's right in our bandwidth as librarians. Social stimulation finally helps brain health by developing a person's social networks. So think about it. Mental stimulation through lifelong learning and interaction with our physical materials and our exhibits, as well as social stimulation through any of our adult programming, especially ones that you'll hear about today, are already among our mission central practices. So in words that I like to quote from Mary Beth, we as librarians can be an essential part of the dementia care team, and many areas of our library work can positively help those living with dementia and their caregivers. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about literacy activities, reading programs, and collection development for literacy. We'll take you through 2 specific and very well tested dementia programs, Memory Cafés and Tales and Travel, and we'll close with an overview of the wide variety of other possible adult programs. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mary Beth Riedner.
I'm hoping that you can hear me better now. Is that the case?
Very good.
Okay, right, excellent. Okay. So you can move on to the next slide. That would be good. All right, this is actually the second in a series of webinars on dementia-friendly libraries. Some of you may have attended the August 25th webinar on outreach activities for people with dementia. You may remember that the many inspirational, even magical activities that Marie and Heather led at memory care facilities and nursing homes. Timothy and I hope to continue this inspiration by telling you about additional successful programs that can be held in-house at our libraries, as well as at residential facilities. One commonly held stigmatizing stereotype is that people who have a dementia diagnosis cannot read. Research actually shows just the opposite. Michelle S. Bourgeois, a professor at the University of South Florida, states, "All my research demonstrates that people who were literate maintain their ability to read until the end stages of dementia." The University of Liverpool has also found that reading group activities produce a significant reduction in dementia symptoms and make a contribution to well-being. Timothy mentioned earlier that dementia progresses through several stages and the whole process can last for many years. During the early and middle stages of dementia, people remain highly functional. But instead of reading a best-selling novel, they might now enjoy browsing through a book on a favorite hobby or some other topic that is of particular interest to them based on their unique life experiences. Literacy activities can stimulate memories and encourage social interactions and conversations. Participants can get a feeling of competence and well-being from doing something that they have always enjoyed. At every session I conduct, I see people experience moments of joy at learning or relearning something new, found in a book or in a list of facts that we give them. A new definition for reading may need to be developed for those living with dementia. It's important not to make assumptions based on prior beliefs. Facility staff and even family members are often surprised by the reading ability of their participants. A simple invitation to read out loud often produces wonderful results. Don't mistake shyness for an inability to read. We all don't want to be put on the spot. It's amazing, though, to see them flipping through books on a wide variety of topics and talking with program staff and each other for 20 minutes at a time. There are many types of literacy materials that can be used successfully. Short fiction, such as folktales, short stories, or excerpts from classic fiction can all be used for oral reading. Nonfiction books, richly illustrated with color photographs, can be selected from both the adult and children's collections for browsing. I have found that the travel theme allows for a selection of a wide variety of topics, including geography, history, culture, sports, art and architecture, and cooking. Local history is another popular topic and gives participants remembering and eagerly talking. Gary Glazner of the Alzheimer's Poetry Project advocates for choral reading of poetry, along with what he calls the call and response method. Typing out the lyrics to songs in a large font makes it easy for participants to sing the whole song and not just the chorus. Word games are another way to engage participants in a literacy activity. I'm going to turn things back to Timothy now.
Thank you. A few words about other types of literature that you will want to have in your collection to better serve this community. Starting with literature which can be of great benefit for caregivers and those in the early stages of cognitive impairment, which are memoirs of those who have lived with loved ones through their dementia. Since Alzheimer's dementia first came to more popular awareness in the 1980s and 1990s, there have been a large number of strong memoirs written about a wide variety of different families and situations, both for our own edification as staff and for meeting the needs of our customers with cognitive impairment and their care partners. We have a large number of resources already available. I've given you a bibliography and a very long list of memoir literature. One of the best, just to give you an example of what this kind of literature can accomplish, is Jonathan Kozel's The Theft of Memory, Losing My Father One Day at a Time. This is an extremely articulate memoir, and in a way it's a dual memoir. Kozel tells the story of his father's Alzheimer's disease, but the tale is rich with details from his father's perspective as well. Both of them are PhD psychologists, clinical psychologists, who bring a remarkable amount of self-awareness into the initial stages of the disease. And there's a lot of good information to hear them reflecting about that. Many memoirs take the perspective of a spousal caregiver. And there's also a small selection in print of complete first-person memoirs from those diagnosed with dementia. People with strong levels of education tend to have what are known as cognitive reserves and may be able to carry out a higher order task like writing a book very carefully in the early stages of dementia. On Pluto, Inside the Mind of Alzheimer's is a memoir by a journalist who treats the opportunity to become an embedded reporter inside dementia. There's a woman named Gerda Saunders who's written a book called Memory's Last Breath. She's an anthropologist and takes field notes on people with dementia and her family. And National Health Service worker in the UK, Wendy Mitchell, wrote Somebody I Used to Know. She had an early onset diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease at 58, and she wrote a fairly activist memoir with post-it notes and other technological aids. In addition to memoirs, I've given you a bibliography where you can see books for all ages to give a good sense for what this is about and how to talk about it with your family. We have picture books such as Striped Shirts and Flowered Pants. There are Alzheimer's novels for teens such as Stefan Melo Bloch's The Story of Forgetting, and our recent Newbery Award winner Mercy Suarez Changes Gears. There are adult novels of various types and genres, from literary fiction, Still Alice, that you're probably aware of, but I can recommend a book called The Wilderness by Samantha Harvey, which is a first-person narrative attempting maddeningly to get inside the mind of how this is affecting a person's way of life. There are African-American, Tiora Moody, When Memories Fade. There are romance novels, if you've got people who want romance novels to try to think about in a literate way how dementia can be affecting life. Sally Hapworth, Barbara Delinsky. There are thrillers, even sci-fi. The most important recommendation, as Mary Beth mentioned already, is to consider the needs and interests of your community and the individual users. We also have a lot of good nonfiction information that we can offer those both with cognitive impairment in the early stages and the caregivers throughout. I encourage you also to become conversant with some of these as public service staff, to know better what the science is around Alzheimer's and what the state of the art in our understanding. There are nonfiction guides geared specifically towards the caregivers. You may be aware of the 36-Hour Day or the recent publication of the Caregivers Encyclopedia. And starting around 2017, there's been a proliferation of new lifestyle and prevention books released by major presses, so easy to get for your collection. Even one by celebrity doctor Richard Furman, Defeating Dementia. We have psychology, medicine, religion, spiritual practice, especially mindfulness practice, all have something to offer the caregiver and the reader in terms of wisdom, expectations, strategies, and coping practices. And now Mary Beth is going to tell you about, as I mentioned, 2 specific and well-established programs for working with this community.
Thank you, Timothy. All right, I'm still hoping you can hear me okay. You're still good? All right, I mentioned Tales of Travel earlier. This is the book and reading program for people living with dementia that I started in 2008 as a volunteer at a memory care facility. In 2011, I began partnering with the GAIL Borden Public Library in Elgin, Illinois. And the program has expanded over the years with grants, awards, a number of conference presentations, journal articles, and book chapters. Libraries across the country have begun conducting their own Tales of Travel programs in their own communities. But the purpose for Tales of Travel has hopefully remained the same. Tales of Travel is designed as an active, not a passive program. From the beginning, it was designed to get participants actively involved in the sessions. In a way similar to art and music therapists who use their specialties to engage those living with dementia, librarians can use literacy activities as a vehicle to encourage active participation. We all know that it's helpful to engage all of our senses when participating in a cognitive activity. And a book is a terrific manipulative that stimulates memories and prompts conversation. The ultimate goal is to provide an enjoyable experience that promotes feelings of community and competence. So, how does Tales and Travel work? Just a note, I will be describing the in-person programs from pre-COVID-19 days. Hopefully we'll be able to get back to this type of programming in the not too distant future. So it's important to build trust and rapport with the participants, and body language is very important. We greet each person as they come into the room by smiling, looking them in the eye and introducing ourselves and asking their name, getting down to their level if they are seated. It's best to speak clearly and just a little slower than normal. Be sure to give the person extra time to process what you have said. It's recommended to pause up to 10 seconds, and that's counting 1001, 1002, and so on, before you expect a response. Now, this may seem awkward, but it gives them time to understand what you said and also to develop their own response. Be sure to be an active listener, giving them your whole attention and listening to the emotional cues that they may be sending. Many of these tips are included in the Tales and Travel checklist that's listed in this session's handout. We then show them the destination individually on a globe or a large map. We recommend seating people at tables pulled together or in a U shape so that they can see each other and the books can lay flat. That eliminates the problem of holding a book and makes it easier for them to turn the pages and examine the pictures and text. We invite them to take turns reading out loud from a folktale, legend, or myth associated with the chosen location, in this case, Mexico, often taken from a children's folktale collection. So we retype the story in large font to make it easier for them to read and also to maintain their dignity. Many can still read and do so with gusto. Those who don't choose to read aloud follow along with the printed text or listen quietly. We also share 5 interesting facts with them, again, inviting them to read them out loud. And we often hear comments such as, "I didn't know that," or "Isn't that amazing?" We then distribute books, carefully selected from both the adult and children's collection, for them to browse through. The most important criteria is that the books be richly illustrated with color photographs. Here are some selections from the adult collections. Most often we use coffee table type books. We tend to avoid the small pocket-sized travel guides that are just too dense. Children's books are readily accepted by the participants when they are chosen to respect the dignity of this adult audience. Books published for junior high or middle school age children are very attractive, and they're full of interesting facts meant to engage the reader. Those individuals further along in their disease process might enjoy books at the primary level. Colorful photos, increased white space, and large font make these books appealing. Supplementary materials include music, souvenirs or artifacts from the destination, coloring pages, and food when approved by the facility. These materials make the program multi-sensory. As they browse, library staff and volunteers circulate among the participants, engaging them in conversation. Often participants want to talk about memories from their own lives, stimulated by the book's contents. This type of socialization is an extremely important part of the program. Another way to reach those living at home is through circulating kits that caregivers can check out and share with their care partner to give them stimulating and enjoyable experiences. These kits can also be used by activity directors to bring to their facilities and conduct programs on their own. Each library can develop kits that are tailored to the needs and interests of their own communities, and they don't have to be expensive. This is an example of a kit developed by the GAIL Borden Library to expand the reach of their Tales and Travel program. There is also a Tales of Travel website that provides librarians with a free toolkit to replicate the program in their own communities. It includes a video of the program in action, as well as 12 excursion guides and 31 stories from different countries made freely available through a Creative Commons license. Now we're going to move on to tell you briefly about memory cafes. You may remember that Timothy told you at the beginning of this session that 81% of those living with dementia are still living at home. Well, how can librarians provide meaningful programs for that large and growing group? Memory cafes are one answer. These are social gatherings for people living with dementia who are usually in the middle or early stages of their disease process, most often accompanied by a family member or a care partner. These cafes serve as places to have fun, find support, and share experiences. People living with dementia often experience great social isolation, and memory cafes have proven to help break that isolation. Libraries are great places to host memory cafes. Here are two resources that you might find useful. The Percolator Memory Cafe Network in Massachusetts is becoming a nationwide leader in this field. Their website provides toolkits for creating memory cafes in both English and Spanish, and their archived quarterly meetings are terrific resources for anyone wanting to start a memory cafe. There is a memory cafe directory, and I did do a search to see if there were any memory cafes in South Carolina. I found one located in the city of Seneca. Here is an example of a successful memory cafe collaborative. At the Library Memory Project, 8 public libraries in the Milwaukee and Waukesha counties of Wisconsin have formed a partnership to take turns hosting a monthly memory cafe. Here's another photo from a memory cafe in the Denver Public Library. And as you can see, these involve a lot of fun, music, laughter, and even dancing. Now, I am a snowbird, meaning I spend my winters in Arizona and my summers in Illinois. In 2017, I started bringing my Tales and Travel program once a month to the Memory Cafe at the Tempe, Arizona Public Library. Recently, I was invited to begin presenting the program at the Sun Lakes, Arizona Memory Cafe. Both of these cafes meet weekly, and after an initial joint gathering for coffee, the attendees break into 2 groups. One is a support group for care partners, and the other is an activity program for those living with dementia. Care partners can choose to stay with their loved one for the activity if they prefer, but in reality, only a few do that. As I understand it, each memory cafe can decide for itself how it wants to operate. The Tempe program usually had an attendance of 50 to 60 people every week during pre-COVID times. The Memory Cafe program lasts a half hour longer than my original Tales and Travel program, so I had to add some additional literacy activities to keep the participants actively engaged for 75 minutes. It's really not hard to do. We now also read poems, we sing songs, and we decorate colored pages using colored pencils. With the advent of the pandemic, memory cafes could no longer meet in person. However, the Sun Lakes, Arizona Memory Cafe quickly pivoted and began offering their programs virtually. I offered to convert my Tales and Travel sessions into an online format, and I call this new series of programs Tales and Travel Adventures. Let's visit various places. In May, 6 regular participants of the Memory Cafe joined me for a trip to Chicago. I used photos I had taken of the city, and I wrote a simple narration that I invited them to take turns reading out loud. They eagerly participated and had lots of memories to share. The program lasted nearly an hour, and everyone appeared to have a good time. Since then, we have taken trips to Italy, California, Austria, and St. Louis. I'm trying to create 1 program a month, and I've now recorded them as videos. The sessions are also available in PowerPoint so that anyone can use them for their own virtual memory cafes. You'll find these links to the videos and the PowerPoint at the Tales of Travel website under the Memory Cafés tab. And Timothy has a lot more interesting ideas to share with you.
Thank you, Mary Beth, for all that you have to share. There is a wide variety of other programs. These are two of the most common that you will find and easiest to adapt, but there's lots that you can do for this community. In addition to literacy activities, using books as a manipulative, as Mary Beth just said, to spark conversations and to spark memories. Interaction with music may be one of the most powerful tools for mental stimulation in memory, in questions of memory, because music travels multiple neural pathways, strengthening mental agility and resilience. One music therapist tells us music is generalized throughout the brain rather than localized in one area, which may be part of the reason older adults retain musical information longer and recall musical memories much more clearly than non-musical memories. Music can mitigate high heart rate and blood pressure and keep away the onset of delirium. And there's good research about the impact of music specifically on those experiencing cognitive decline. There's cognitive and emotional benefits from tapping into musical memories. There's defense against some of the behavioral and psychological challenges. There's even demonstrated increases in neuron building activity and immediate connectedness to one's past and one's culture. The best program in this vein is called Music and Memory, in which the goal is to stimulate musical memories and positive therapeutic effects. The program uses donated phones and iPods, loads them with tracks from an individual's past musical life, and then they give the they give the devices to persons with dementia in care facilities. Librarians can become trained in this program and can use this both for outreach or for in-branch programming with the donated equipment. The image and the link below is from a brief clip from a documentary about the program, showing the immediate and even continuous effect of personal music. The man is named Henry. At the beginning of the clip, he's largely unresponsive. He doesn't recognize his daughter, but they put the headphones on and he starts hearing music from his past, and he reacquires his identity. His eyes pop open, he's moving to the music, he's vocalizing, and he's even immediately able to carry on a conversation about the music afterwards. So again, a program well worth considering to bring in for music programs in your libraries. In addition, you can do simple things like concerts or sing-along events to tap into musical memories and have the social experience of making music together once we are able to get back together, of course. And any kind of creative engagement, storytelling, painting, dance, poetry, is known to strengthen mental resilience and build a sense of one's control over life. Art therapies can thus also connect to one's culture and to personal memories as a kind of life story and reminiscence work. This program is from the Museum of Modern Art, the MoMA Alzheimer's Project, Meet Me, and it follows some of the same kind of dramatic effects of music, but it uses art objects. In this kind of program, there are specially trained docents who lead tours through a small part of the collection. For an hour's program, they might look at three paintings, and they'll choose ones that are representational and that have a wide canvas so that there's little distraction and people can interact with the art. But the intent is not to learn about art, but rather to spark memories and conversations. The theme might be gardens, and you can look at images of gardens and think about times of gardening in your past and times of gardening in your families. And the intent is to spark conversations and social interactions with persons with dementia and their caregivers together. This is something that could easily also be done with the images then being the kind of manipulative to spark both mental and social stimulation. Games and technology also can be great tools for non-pharmacological interventions and are easier than you might think to get older adults interested in it. It's a misconception that all older adults shy away from technology. We have, the Pew research shows how many older adults are getting on Facebook and using their phones, especially for social interaction, to get in touch with their family. So we can use technology similarly for mental stimulation. We can use iPads for puzzles and games for mental stimulation through the technology in a program with a small number of older adults and to get them talking to foster some of the social stimulation as well. Assistive technologies help not only with mobility, but can also add a multimedia environment to reminiscence therapy. If you happen to be renovating your library, there's a kind of sensory room that can be put into your library for programming, both with patrons with autism spectrum and patrons experiencing cognitive decline. It's a space that can be technologically used either for very low stimulation or for higher and more interactive stimulation. There have even been some studies about the uses of virtual and augmented reality to assist both the assessment of dementia, but also to help with reminiscence therapies. There's a virtual mixed reality aquarium. There's an interactive movie database, a digital photo book. Any of these can add technological and sensory experience to a kind of programming. You could even do this with Google Cardboard, which is very inexpensive if you don't have enough money for Oculus Rifts, but there are ways that are out there and programs that are already planned for you that you could try out to spark conversations and mental stimulation with some of these patrons. I think we all should keep our eyes open to how games and technology could be some of the future of our dementia programming. The list could go on and could be a whole other hour for us. I just want to mention a couple others from the wide spectrum of program ideas. Memory connection centers, just as we have homework help centers or job health centers, there could be a similar focus for brain health. Have a corner with brochures and information in some of those collections about dementia, information about local events, support groups. Partner with the Alzheimer's Association in your area because they can provide you with materials, information about memory screenings, other area resources. Meditation programs can help. Meditation has been shown to increase brain density, improve memory, and decrease anxiety. And so meditation programs, if you're going to have yoga programs or anything like that, you can do that specifically geared towards the older adults who might be experiencing cognitive decline. We can think about outreach with pets. Licensed therapy dogs have a wonderful impact on those with dementia. I'm remembering a particular moment with our own pet when we took him into the memory ward in a care facility and how the eyes of people were lighting up and the conversations and memories that were sparked just by the presence of an animal. If you don't want to do that in your building, stuffed animals. There are therapy stuffed animals specifically designed for persons with cognitive decline. And these are some that you could use in-house as a manipulative and to spark memories and conversations. Other ideas already in use in libraries around the country include vintage movie nights, fidget quit making, library memory gardens, library tours, since someone's first memory of a library is, we hope, a very good memory. Let's bring them back to that library. The list goes on and on. I'm going to turn back over to Mary Beth to talk a little bit about other resources and partnerships that you can use.
Thanks again, Timothy. That's a huge list of interesting things that I need to explore myself. I'd like to tell you briefly about a fairly new nationwide initiative called Dementia Friendly America, or DFA. There are now communities in 38 states across the country moving toward becoming dementia friendly. This is a collaborative effort uniting all aspects of a community, including government bodies, first responders, businesses, faith communities, legal and financial services, health services, and community organizations. Libraries are recognized as an important part of the collaborative efforts of dementia-friendly communities. I did look to see if there are any in South Carolina, and there are none according to the DFA website at this time, but maybe down the road. DFA does include a sector guide for libraries outlining a wide variety of ways that librarians can add value to the dementia-friendly movement. There is also a subset of DFA called Dementia Friends USA, and it focuses on providing dementia awareness training. But due to COVID-19, Dementia Friends can no longer offer their 1-hour in-person training sessions, but they are beginning to offer these sessions live via Zoom during the pandemic. This kind of session might be appropriate for an all-staff training session at some point. And again, I'm afraid no one in South Carolina has taken over offering this Dementia Friends program, but that also could change. I do want to point out that libraries wanting to start or expand programming for those living with dementia do not need to do so alone. You could seek partners with other libraries in your geographic area, as they did in Wisconsin, or with government or medical agencies in your communities that are already focused on providing for the needs of those living with dementia. And there's a list here. Most of these things are also included in the handout links to different resources. In South Carolina, there are a few websites that might be helpful. And here's also a link to the South Carolina Alzheimer's Association chapter. The next screen shows several websites where you can help to identify residential memory care facilities in your area and also daycare facilities. Finally, here is a list of the area agencies on aging from across your state. You may have to go down a few levels on these websites to find the level for aging. I would recommend that you contact your local AAA if they can offer information and assistance, sometimes even financial assistance. So this is the end of our formal presentation. We'd like to thank you so much for your time and attention. Please feel free to contact us with comments or questions via email. And if anyone has any questions now, Timothy and I would be happy to try to answer them. Any questions on chat?
While we're checking in the chat, I wanted to mention one other resource. Mary Beth referred to the ALA interest group earlier in the presentation. I heartily encourage you to get on the mailing list and become a member of this organization. It's very easy, and you can find lots of other librarians who are out there working on and caring for this community and get lots of other ideas and support.
Thanks, Timothy, but there is one caveat. We're kind of in transition.
True, true.
You are an American Library Association member. There is a Connect group that right away. You can find under that library services for Alzheimer's dementia, or LSDA, dementia, Alzheimer's. And we're working on putting together a Google group, and our web pages are still like not there yet, but they will be. So the two things you could look for right now are going to the Connect group, and also going to the Odlos page, because sooner or later they will have our web pages there.
Do we have any questions for our presenters?
I do have one thing I would like to, this is John Hay. We're up in North Carolina and have some experience with this in our local area. One thing I kind of wanted to address, you might want to have some preparation on kind of some ideas of like safety in terms of talking to the people who are coming in with who is visiting the library at that time, special medical needs, that kind of thing, to have a better understanding of what to kind of expect with the people who are there. I'm saying this for myself too. I have dementia, and we locally here have a memory cafe and a memory group and other support groups, and use our library extensively. And I found that it works very well for getting to know the librarians there, just for visiting, especially having medical bracelets, this kind of thing, information available with you, and kind of introducing and identifying yourself with the librarians and the people that are there, so that if and when something does happen, they're aware of what's going on. And it kind of becomes a safer place, and it also kind of avoids a lot of panic and things like that if they're not familiar with what's going on. It's one thing when you're planning an event, but you'll find a lot of people with dementia like the libraries very much, just because it's a quiet place you can go compared to most places you can go. And so it becomes kind of a safe place for a lot of us. And I could go on and on, but I don't want to tie up things.
A great point. Very important.
And yes, we do hope it is a very safe place, and and one that is welcoming and stimulating. Several of the staff training resources that Mary Beth mentioned and that you'll find in the handout, I believe, do address recognition of the warning signs and specific gentle, respectful ways of communicating with those experiencing cognitive decline. And yes, having the staff awareness broadly throughout the staff is going to go a long way to make a more friendly institution.
We were even doing cafes and so on at our library. They had a lot of instructional meetings and things like that, and a lot of people interacted there and met for it. You'll get a lot of information from the caregivers, a lot of good suggestions on that kind of thing, and you find a lot of them will be good support for a lot of these events that you plan. You'll find people more than willing to step up for that kind of thing, and we're doing most of them virtually now, so it's kind of a hard thing, but we do surprisingly well on Zoom and things like that. It would surprise you. We're usually teaching people who don't think that we could handle it how to do it. So that's kind of a new experience. So, but thank you very much for all of this. This has been great.
Thank you as well.
Do we have any other questions? Would anyone like to unmute or type in chat? Any
Hi.
comments? Go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, I was going to ask, thank you all very much for that array of ideas. I was going to ask, were there any programs that you particularly suggest during this time of COVID? Is there anything that you think would work especially well when in-person gatherings are not available or less available?
Well, the Tales and Travel program has been working okay. What we found, though, and I've talked to other people who have been doing virtual cafes, is that if they had an in-person cafe, their attendance at a virtual cafe is about a third. There are still, roadblocks because of equipment or ability to know how to, set things up. But they're doing all kinds of things. Music. There's lots of sing-alongs happening. I think if you go to that Percolator website, you'll find a whole bunch of ideas there about what people are doing. And Tales and Travel is open for anybody to borrow and steal and use. The people are starting to copy my idea too. I've got two other libraries, one in Wisconsin, one in Illinois, who are making their own for their own local community. So like in Wisconsin, they were doing Door County, which is a really lovely peninsula where people go for vacations, and it's well known in Wisconsin. So we can, I think people do. I'm not sure, John. Maybe you could agree that people like to go back to memories from their childhood and where they used to go, and the things that have special meaning for them. That's why the local stuff is, I think, very helpful.
Well, those are the greatest things to bring up something at a meeting. Is all you have to do is say, "Oh, I used to have a dog," and they'll tell you about the dog. Everybody's got a story about a dog's toys you used to play with, the car you used to have, where you used to live. And reminiscing is a huge part of dementia, unfortunately, at this point. But that's a great conversation starter, and you'll see eyes light up all around the group. They'll immediately come to life because everybody can tell you about something like that they connect to. And we have so many common bond things like that, jobs, travel, hobbies. It's an easy start.
In a way, there's an almost infinite number of easy starts, because it's not that we have to get across any particular kind of content. All of these are more geared towards just getting the mental stimulation, getting people talking, getting people interacting with one another, and caring for one another. And so, yes. I do see a question in the chat about tips for conducting virtual memory cafes with patrons who aren't especially tech savvy.
And I hate to keep passing this off to the Percolator, but they have written things up about this, how you can, the information each program should start with, so that people will know what they should do in order to benefit from the program the most. I personally haven't done that, but yeah. Check out the Percolator website, and I'm sure you'll find things there.
I can mention one thing that works really good with that is when you do have a group meeting, is everyone brings their phones, and you can set up a Zoom meeting in the meeting, and they get a chance to see how that kind of works, and you can kind of walk around to each and kind of get the idea of, yeah, this is how you don't just appear as a chin during the entire meeting and things like that. And it's an easy way to start, and then you can do it from home. But especially if you have a lot of phones, it helps just to teach the caregiver about it first, if nothing else, and it gives an opportunity for them to learn it together. Throw that in.
Emma, the name of the website is the Percolator Network. It's a couple slides back, but it will also be on the PDF handout from the session.
Yes, we did email that handout out to everybody, so you should have that. If you need another email or have missed it, let me know and I'll send it out again. We do have about 2 minutes left if anyone has any final questions. Thank you for all of your participation. I will say also, remember that the State Library does have our circulating kits, both with the book club kits and also some activities technology and our hands-on, like the kitchen in a box and the cooking kits, which would be something you could certainly use for programs like this. Of course, we're circulating in a sort of limited capacity at the moment because of the current situation, but that's an option. And also, if you have a particular kit or idea or something that you would like to try to circulate but are not sure you want to commit to it, let us know, and it's possible that we could add that to our circulating kit collections, and others would be able to try it out as well. So
I did see one more quick question in the chat. Any resources to help advocate for services for these patrons and their caregivers? And for that, I would say that's going to be a lot with the partnerships, as Mary Beth spoke. Partnership, yes, with your state library, partnership with the Alzheimer's Association, partnership with your area agencies.
this is also a great opportunity to use some stats and numbers in, showing what percentage of your population is affected by these issues, or how prevalent this is.
Definitely. And I think the AAAs could help with a lot of that information. If you need to take it to your library board, or if you want to bring it to your mayor or whoever, city government, to say, hey, did you know that there are dementia-friendly communities in other states, and where are we in this? I don't know enough about your government and setup to suggest anything specific. But.
Is this presentation going to be recorded? Is it available?
Yes. Yeah, we will send the recording out in a few days to a week. It'll be on our State Library YouTube channel. And the previous presentation in this series also is recorded and is on there. So, all right. Any other questions? Thank you all for attending and participating. Thank you to our presenters. This was very informative. I'll be sending out resources and also a survey after the session concludes here, so you can do the evaluation.